Hello, Guitar Smarts fans. Before you check out this podcast, I want to make you aware of a cool new place where you can interact with other Guitar Smarts listeners. It's a Facebook group called the Guitar Geek Hangout. That's where we hang out and talk about all things guitar. So, if you like the Guitar Smarts podcast, come and chat with Kiran and myself over in the Guitar Geek Hangout on Facebook. Maybe check out some pre-podcast clips and even get involved in asking and answering lots of questions from the other page dwellers. Hope to see you there. For all the amazing guitars and Dunbar lamps and things and everything that he has, didn't have strap locks on, and he nearly dropped his guitar mid-guitar solo. And
really?
Yeah, absolutely, it came off the bottom, and both John Mayer and Keith Urban almost stopped playing because John Mayer was trying to help him get his strap back on. I was just watching that thinking, you should have had strap locks on, Keith.
Seriously, dude?
Yeah. Greetings, welcome to the Guitar Smarts podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in, as always. This week we are on to part 2 of our guitar modification conversation. So last week you would have heard us discuss various things that you can do with your guitars to improve them or make them more versatile or to make changes, anything that you fancy. And we're continuing that conversation this week so that you can hear the full 10 things that we think are worth looking at, worth doing, worth considering for your guitars. Come and find us on our social media pages. You can find us on facebook.com at facebook.com/Guitar Smarts, and also come and like us on Instagram. You can find us there using the handle at guitar_smarts. Now, one of the favours we've been asking is it to help us grow our podcast and help us get to more listeners is to go and rate our podcast. So give a rating and a review of our podcast on some of the podcast platforms that allow you to do that. I've left a link in our show notes for the podcast, so wherever you're listening to this podcast, you'll be able to read and find those links to take you to where you can leave a review and a rating. The more reviews and the more ratings we get, that helps us to appear in more searches for guitar related podcasts, so it really does help us a lot. Anyway, that's enough waffle from me. Hope you enjoy the show. Let's get to it. So we're still looking at electronics, right? What other kind of, there's lots of possibility to make changes to your electronics within a guitar, right? What else would you look at doing?
Yeah, so let's kind of group this next couple together. So, 5 and 6 would be looking at the tone and volume pots, and replacing, the tone caps while you're doing that as well. So basically, in an electric guitar, you can quite easily look at the pickups as one mod, and then I would look at the overall wiring, harness, and guts of the kind of tone and volume cavity as the next mod. And you might as well, if you're going to do that mod and start looking at different tone pots, volume pots, you might as well replace the tone caps and things like that to kind of upgrade the circuitry there. And it's dead easy. These are very simple circuits between the pickups, the selector switch, and the output jack, and then the tone caps, and you can get wiring diagrams off the internet. But I would say upgrading, particularly older pots will wear out, they will get dirty, and if you've tried to clean them out as we suggested in the Guitar Maintenance 101 episodes and it's still not working, or the tone pots don't feel like that they've got, or the volume pots don't feel like they've got the right taper on them, you can get linear taper or audio taper pots which respond in a different way as you kind of turn them, in terms of how quickly or uniformly the effect on the tone or volume happens. And there is no necessary right or wrong. I mean, certain manufacturers like Gibson generally always put kind of linear taper pots, I think, in the volume, and audio taper in the tone, and things like that. But you can play around with all of that and experiment to your heart's content, and you can mess around with the values of the pots. 250k, 500k, depending on if you're using single coil or humbuckers, kind of respectively. Yeah. There's a whole minefield you can get into, but they're all relatively cheap parts that, again, if you're competent with a soldering iron, can have a really good improvement on the way in which those volume and tone knobs respond when you use them, and also can when you interplay that with different caps, tone caps, be they upgrading from the standard little ceramic things that you sometimes get in more modest guitars to kind of orange drop or paper in oil capacitors. I mean, you probably are getting into the again, law of diminishing returns here, but it's quite nice. They're relatively inexpensive bits of hardware to chuck into a guitar and see what it does to the sound.
That's something I did just recently. I must add. So the extent of my electronics mods on the Strat have been a number of things. It's been that switch I told you about, where I can bring the neck pickup in. They upgraded the pickup in the bridge, and I also added a treble bleed mod, which is
okay, nice.
So that's basically it's just a capacitor and a resistor in parallel across the output of the volume pot, which is a little bit of electronic speak, and it probably doesn't make sense to a lot of people. But what that basically means is within an audio circuit like your guitar is, what a capacitor does is it acts as a filter. So depending on the that's why you have a little capacitor on your tone knob. Your tone knob's doing the same thing as a volume knob, but when you add a capacitor, what it's effectively doing, it means it's only turning down certain frequencies that capacitor's filtering out of the signal. But you'll probably notice, if you're like me and you're the kind of guitarist that likes to use the volume knob as part of your tones between getting a clean sound and a more dirty sound, as you turn down the volume on your guitar, you're also going to lose a bit of high end. So what the treble bleed mod does is it stops the filtering away of that high end as you turn your volume down. So it means as you go from dirty to clean, by turning it down, you still have quite a clear signal. So I like that modification. That's a really good one to do.
It's a really simple one. You can even buy the treble bleed mod kits already, where the resistor is already wired into the capacitor, so that you literally have less soldering to do. It's easily reversible, right? If you don't like it, just desolder it and reverse it. But as you say, it's a really good mod for retaining that tonal qualities of your guitar as you turn down the volume pot without it getting muddy or dirty. Some people like that, and it's part of their kind of way in which they play, right? But some people just want to lower the volume without lowering the frequency range. There's a few different ways to wire in a treble bleed as well.
That's right.
I think there's like, you can do it in series, you can do it in parallel, or there's like is it a Kinsman way of doing it, which is I think it's this Australian guitar tech and pickup guy who came up with a different way of doing it. Again, all of which have different effects on how much the treble bleed mod works with your guitar. So again, you can Google all of this. There's different ways of doing it, but super cheap and cool thing to do to a guitar. Yeah, so I think
what I was reading is that you can do it with just a capacitor, but I think it can then affect the taper of your volume pot. Adding that resistor in parallel or in line in series will help to maintain the similar taper to what you already have, basically. But they all effectively do the same job. You might prefer one over another. It's a simple experiment to do, really.
Yeah. All right. So, quick recap. What have we done? We've looked at tuners. We've looked at your bone nut or synthetic bone nut. Strings, we've said mess around with. Number 4 on the list was pickups. Experiment with different kind of magnet types and kind of output values and see what that does for your tone. We've looked at tone and volume pots in terms of playing around with the values of those and the different tapers that you can get on tone and volume knobs to kind of affect the way in which the guitar responds as you utilize those things. Similarly, we've looked at tone capacitors in terms of what they're made of, and thinking about how you would utilize those in the mods that you do to your tone and volume pots. And we've also spoken about little mods that you can do. You mentioned, some of the switching options that you've done on your Strat recently, and including this treble bleed mod. So, which is a really cool one to experiment with. So I think we're probably up to the last few mods now, which are pretty easy ones actually. I think we've got 3 left, haven't we? So this is one that, again, you and I spoke about, and I think you did originally want to do this, and then you ended up replacing the entire block on your Strat. But this was the replacing of saddles, so the individual saddle pieces on your Strat, because they had corroded, and I think particularly the saddles themselves weren't maintaining the height that they'd been set at, and you were getting some slippage with that, right? So
that's right, yeah.
So that's really common, and that happens just through general wear, particularly if you, as a guitar player, and a lot of guitar players have this, where they sweat out of their hand and it kind of corrodes the metal there. So replacing the saddles, I mean, how easy was that to do, Matt?
Well, I never did I? I replaced the whole tremolo block, but replacing the whole tremolo block itself rather than just the saddles was it was easy. It was easy. I felt confident doing it. It's not a complicated thing. You kind of think of it as you've got the strings that go and connect to the tremolo, and on the other side of the tremolo you've got springs that connect, and that's kind of like a little balanced system. So you just kind of taking your strings off, taking the springs off, and then I unscrewed the tremolo block and screwed the new one in, make sure it was lined up, and then tried to get it balanced up the same way. And it was part of me thinks maybe it still needs a little bit of adjustment, but I'm really happy with it, happy with the way it feels, happy with how it plays, and it definitely improved the guitar, improved how the guitar felt to play. It has improved how it sounds as well. So I would definitely give it a go. But like you say, you might find that you only need to replace the saddles themselves rather than the entire trem system. That was approaching the problem from, like we just said, that was the reason I did that, was to try and solve a problem. But what could you do to upgrade a saddle or tremolo system that you have that works fine already, but maybe you just want to improve it? What's out there on the market?
So material type is probably one of the, and shape actually, in terms of saddles. So we're talking predominantly now about S-style Fender type or Telecaster saddles. So I think a lot of the more modestly priced guitars are fitted with that kind of rolled vintage style saddle. There'll be 6 of them, right, on a Strat, where it kind of looks like a little, how do I describe it? It looks like a little Santa's sleigh. Doesn't it? That's kind of curved up at the front, and that's the only way I can really think of the shape of it, right? But that's kind of vintage style of it. And then you've got your 2 little grub screws in each one that obviously affect the height of it. And you've got 6 of those as your saddle. So what you often find is that, they can corrode and rust away and all of that. But if you're just wanting to upgrade what you've got there to a better one that can affect the tone and playability, then you can get ones which are kind of more of a modern rectangular shape. So
a machined block,
like a machine blocked one, and they're called like a modern saddle, where the grub screws can be recessed into the little saddle block, so you don't get the grub screws sticking up as you're kind of palm muting and things. So it makes it more comfortable. They can be made out of different materials. So the ones that you get on the kind of more inexpensive guitars are generally made of, I think, like a nickel plated zinc alloy, which is susceptible to damage and rust and things like that. So you can replace that with steel, stainless steel. I think they even do tusk versions, which are kind of funky looking because they're white, but it looks a bit odd. But tonally, I hear really good things about them because obviously it's got that kind of bone quality that we spoke about before. But in a saddle piece, they look kind of cool. There's a company called Raw Vintage who are producing these like period correct, absolutely on the money vintage saddles. They're pretty expensive, I must say, but they look really tasty and apparently sound incredible. The reviews that people are kicking out about these Raw Vintage saddles, where they've really utilized top end materials to tonally impart that improvement to a guitar. Wow. They sound great. So, you can buy a replacement set of saddles, these kind of 6 saddles that we're talking about, anywhere from like $10, $15 or pounds, all the way up to like well over £100 or dollars. There's such a range. Brass is often a nice upgrade if you don't mind the look of it. Tonally, it works really well. You can get Graph Tech do a set of those, which are really cool, which have got a nice self-lubricating bit where the string goes through. Oh man, it's endless. You can get ones with offset screws and things so that the string doesn't pinch on the screw, and honestly, it's such a cheap mod and such a simple mod to do to your guitar, and has an impact on tone, tuning stability, comfort, and playability. That I would encourage anyone, if they've got like a Strat or a Tele, to have a look at those 6 saddle pieces and mess around with modding that.
Yeah, another great advantage, I guess, to the old electric guitar. There's another one of those things that you can do cheaply that can make quite a big difference. And like you said, there's so many choices. I mean, wasn't there a company called Graph Tech as well that did something like that? Graphite-based saddles, and obviously that's almost like a self-lubricating material in a way, isn't it? So help with tuning stability and string breakages and things like that. Can you get the same kind of alternate products for like Les Paul type guitars as well? You know, that have the Tune-o-matic style bridges or Bigsby, even, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you can. You can. It's they're a bit more tricky to fit, because what you often find is they come as so if we're talking about like the ABR1 style bridge piece where the strings go over, there's only 2 adjustment points on them for height, which is, you know, at either end. So often what you have to do is match the profile and the cut on each of the individual little pieces on the top of that ABR1 bridge. So sometimes it's a bit more tricky to fit newer ones of those, but it's easily doable if you're handy with a metal file. I think I have seen different materials and things being used on those kind of Les Paul type bridges, saddles. Certainly you can get aftermarket ones, because depending on how the string and tailpiece have been set, you can sometimes see on some older Les Paul type guitars where that saddle starts to sag over time, but that's kind of more of a maintenance thing. I mean, Tone Pros do a great range of aftermarket hardware for Les Paul style guitars, and I think they're really well made, and you know, I think it does improve the quality of the sound of a guitar when you put a really decent Tone Pros stop tailpiece and bridge onto a Les Paul, but I don't think it's as noticeable as when you replace the saddles on a Strat, if I'm honest.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, right. Let's move on again down the guitar. What of the last couple of things that we've got to look at now? What's the next thing?
So next one is, again, really easy DIY mod. I don't think you did this to your Strat, did you? Which is shielding the cavity and the pickguard.
No, I haven't done that.
Maybe it's not relevant on your guitar, but I think a lot of players with single coils talk about that kind of hum that they get. You know, the intrinsic kind of like setup can act like antenna for electromagnetic interference and stuff, right? So single coils particularly can pick this up. So shielding is basically a way of trying to reduce the level of noise that is getting amplified by your single coil pickups due to kind of you'll know better than I. You're a bit of a whiz on this, but it's like kind of EM interference, right? That's coming through into the pickups on single coils. Humbuckers, you don't get it, because obviously the way in which the magnets and coils are arranged is it kind of cancels out that noise, but single coils can be problematic for that.
I was just before you move on, it just reminded me of it was the guitarist I was watching talking about the guitar online. I can't remember who it was. Anyway, there was the guitarist talking about his new guitar, and he had this genius way of dealing with hum issues on single coils. There's a lot of products like Fender have got the noiseless pickups, right? And I think they were one of the innovators with noiseless single coils, and Fishman do some good ones now as well in their range, and there's various different ones. The great thing about this what this chap had done with his guitar. I can't remember who it was. I keep wanting to say Richie Kotzen, but it wasn't Richie Kotzen. It was somebody else. What he had under his pick guard, in a cavity that he drilled, he had a dummy single coil.
Yeah.
So it wasn't under the strings. It wasn't picking anything up, but it was there as a dummy, and it was always wide in. So whatever pickup he selected, he still had the single coil sound, but he had the humbucking, the noise reducing humbucking effect, which happens because the way humbucker works, you've got two pickup signals. They're kind of wired in such a way so that the sound is multiplied because you get the addition of both coils, but the noise is kind of reversed on one of those signal paths, so it cancels out the noise from the other, right? So that's the way balanced audio works, right? But instead of having humbucking pickups, he still had the single coil sounds with a dummy coil hidden under the pick guard that effectively did the job of taking that. That's such a genius way of solving that humbucking issue, that single coil noise issue.
A trade secret. And that dummy coil, it's literally a coil, right? There's no magnet in that pickup. No. It's literally, you take the magnet out and it's just a coil of wire that is cancelling out the noise underneath it, provided you've got the space for it underneath. And I guess you have to do it for each pickup that you want to hum cancel, right? But it's definitely a way of doing it. I think I would say I've not done it to a guitar, but I've been tempted to do it a few times. And there is a school of thought that says it does affect the tone of your single coil pickups in a similar way. Well, not in a similar way, but it does have an effect like the noiseless pickups that you get that are really, really decent, but still there's something slightly affected on the tone of them. I have heard people on the kind of forums and stuff saying that it does affect the tone of the existing pickups. So it's worth having a mess around with putting these dummy coils in. But I would say there's some really good pedals on the market. Electro Harmonics do one called the Hum Eliminator or Hum Excluder or something like that, which you can. That's really non-invasive. You don't need to mess around with your guitar. You just put that between your board and your power amp, and that will take out any of that hum. Shielding the cavity of the guitar, as we spoke about, maybe is a simpler way of eliminating hum if it's not that bad, but it's kind of annoying you a bit. Maybe try that first, but then looking at a dummy coil as well. We'll have to do that. We'll have to do that to one of our Strats with single coils. Like compare the difference between like shielding it and putting a dummy coil in and seeing what effect that has.
Well, I've got to say, I've just done these mods to my guitar. However, I am thinking that it still needs an entire new rewire, because what I've still got in there is the original pots, all the original wiring, and I keep thinking I've added these mods and it sounds better, but it would be good to maybe upgrade from the original pots to maybe just something bigger, like a CTS pots maybe, and just get some more, get the wiring a little bit tidier in there, because it's obviously it's a guitar that's built to a price. And that's where sometimes they save the money. Is why you can tell it's wired up quite quickly and cheaply. So maybe when we do that, maybe we'll shield the cavity or put like a dummy coil in there. Use it as a bit of an experiment. That'd be good.
That'd be good.
Yeah,
that'd be good. The shielding's pretty easy to do, right? You can get this adhesive-backed kind of copper foil stuff relatively cheap now off Amazon and places like that, which is really decent. And I think the adhesive is conductive as well, so it's really easy to kind of overlap this stuff and line the cavity of the guitar. And then I think the principle is you just have a little bit overlapping the body of the guitar, and then line the back of the scratch plate as well. Obviously take the pickups out and then line the back of the scratch plate, and then when you drop those two things together with the pickups back in, it creates that kind of continuity,
Faraday cage kind of thing.
Exactly. And then it kind of shields the inside of the guitar. I think it's also advisable to do the kind of jack socket as well if you've got like a S style guitar where you can get to the jack socket and then build like a little bridge of wire between the two, just with a soldering piece, and then you can test all of that with a multimeter.
Exactly. Sure you've got
that continuity
from all your earth points to
but it's quite easy one to do. But the dummy coil, we'll have to have a go at that because I've not done that before. Shielding I've done on a customer's guitar a long time ago, and that worked quite successfully. It's quite easy to do. But I'm intrigued about the dummy coil to see if that's I want to see if it does have an effect on the actual original pickups or not.
Yeah, it'd be good to test that.
Yeah, my gut is telling me it should do, but don't know.
You're not turning into Eric Johnson, are you? You know, the man who's notorious. Do you know Eric Johnson takes the back plate off of his Strats because he said he can hear the difference in tone from having that plastic? Yeah, he does. Honestly, I swear. Go and look it up. I love Eric Johnson. I think he's an amazing guitarist, one of my favourite. And my playlist on Spotify of songs and solos that I want to learn is littered with Eric Johnson stuff. But come on, Eric, doesn't make that much difference.
I know a lot of people do that for ease of string changing. Yeah,
exactly.
Right? That's a very practical reason to do it.
Yeah.
But I know some people that even if they've blocked off the trem, so it's not working, or they've just literally floored it to the deck, even if they haven't used a wooden block to stop the mechanics of it working, you can just floor it onto the body of the guitar to stop it working. But I know people that still keep the trem springs attached because they think there's definitely an audible difference in the guitar from having those springs there or not, in terms of just with not even using the trem, right, but just having those there or not. And that can I buy into that? I don't know. I've never done it. No, never. Don't know. Maybe. I think I can buy into that more than taking the piece of plastic off.
Yeah, exactly. I could buy into that. Maybe it does. Excellent. So
we should do a Mythbusters episode, which is top 10 absolute nonsense mods, which have no effect whatsoever.
That's it. Snake oil mods.
We've got one more on the list, right? And this is one that is going to do absolutely nothing for the playability, tone, or anything of your guitar, but psychologically might be one of the best things you ever put on your guitar.
Yeah. You say it doesn't do anything to the tone. It does, in that it stops you breaking your guitar and making it unplayable.
What is the best sounding guitar, Matt? One that is still in one piece.
One that isn't broken on the floor. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm religious about this. Well, I say religious. Other people call it OCD, but like I that's the thing. I just I love putting strap locks on all my guitars. It just gives me that psychological reassurance that it is a really naff design, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of all things, that has still not been really improved on the guitar that comes out of the factory. Generally, these little piddly strap buttons that you then put your favorite guitar strap on, and it slips over that little bit and it dangles around your neck, and you're on stage and you're playing and you're moving around, and then I know you can get really inexpensive little rubber grommets or whatever you would call them, washers that you slip over the top, right? And a lot of people use what is it, Grolsch, the beer.
Yes, the Grolsch, because the original Grolsch bottles were kind of like those. I don't know how you describe it. How do you describe the way that they would open and shut? Had a little metal,
it's like a little lever mechanism, right?
That's
with
right.
a rubber seal went in between the bottle top and the mechanical lid, right? You still get Grolsch bottles
exactly,
like that.
Yeah. Well, I think now you can buy, it might even be something like Gin Dom that have done them. They've basically stolen the design, and you can now buy the red seals that basically you can stretch them over your standard strap peg, your strap button, after you've put your guitar strap on, and now your guitar strap can't come off because that rubber seal's much bigger than the peg, and obviously it's bigger than the hole on your strap. So it's a really good way of doing it, unless you only kind of have one strap that you use across different instruments. That's another good thing to do. Locking strap locks. I've lost the ability to talk over the length of this podcast. That's a good reason to use strap locks on your guitars, right? If you use the same type across all your guitars, then you can move your strap from guitar to guitar really easily.
Yeah, well, yeah, invariably that it makes it more convenient. It also makes it bloody costly because I've now every guitar I buy. I don't use the Grolsch beer things. I use my personal. I like the I think they're called Schaller ones. I like those, but my favourite ones are the Jim Dunlop strap locks, which have a really nice lock, and it has a little depressible button in the middle of the thing that goes on the strap, and so every guitar that I buy, I know I'm going to be shelling out another $10-15 on a set of Jim Dunlop strap buttons.
Which is a lot of money for you, because you buy a guitar like I buy cornflakes.
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah, I'm complaining about the fact that I've got to put strap locks on it, but it's kind of like, it's
important. It's important.
Yeah.
Go and watch. The Crossroads Guitar Festival that happened periodically over the last kind of couple of decades. I think it was the 2013. Yeah, it must be 2013 one at Madison Square Gardens, and John Mayer and Keith Urban played a Beatles cover. I think it's called Don't Let Me Down. I think it's called something like that. Go and watch that. Keith Urban, for all the amazing guitars and Dunbar lamps and things and everything that he has, didn't have strap locks on, and he nearly dropped his guitar mid-guitar solo. And yeah, absolutely, it came off the bottom, and both John Mayer and Keith Urban almost stopped playing because John Mayer was trying to help him get his strap back on. I was just watching that thinking, you should have had strap locks on, Keith.
Seriously, dude.
Yeah, Keith Urban, for crying out loud. I mean, I know he's a big country star, but he's a pretty serious guitarist as well. Fantastic guitarist. And nearly dropped what looked to be quite a very vintage Telecaster on the deck, mid-guitar solo, because his strap came undone at the peg. I mean,
at the very least, right, put some of those little Grolsch lager beer washers over the top, or buy some like off Amazon or whatever, where they've been like strap lock washers or whatever, at the very least. But honestly, for not much money, just all it involves is replacing the strap button with the one that comes with a kind of proper mechanical strap lock, and replacing a piece on your strap or attaching a piece onto your strap, and that's it. You're set. You're set. It's dead easy. You're good to go. You put that guitar on, you lock the strap on, and that's it. You do not have to worry about that. It's just a no-brainer to me in terms of a mod.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can't do, if you're Joe Bonamassa, you can't do that. You can't add strap locks to your 59 Les Paul, can you?
No, but that's probably true. Yeah, that's a good question. What does Bonamassa do to... Well, you say that, he top wraps all of his Les Pauls, doesn't he? So
yeah, I do that with my Les Paul. Do you top wrap?
Do you?
Yeah.
I've got one that I top wrap because... belovedly Gibson made a beautiful guitar that I bought, but for some reason the neck angle on it is not exactly what it needs to be, which is quite common, right? And so what it means is that the strings slightly foul on the back of the saddle. Even with the tail piece adjusted, to maximum to try and get it off the back of that. So it doesn't. There's a school of thought that says that doesn't really matter if it does that, but I don't particularly like that. So I found by top wrapping it changes the brake angle over the saddle and then clears the saddle when I've got the guitar set up with the desired action. But I must say I'm a fan of it now, because also what it does is it changes the playability and the feel of that guitar, and it allows you then to deck the tailpiece all the way down now that the strings are top wrapped.
Yeah, I don't notice any sound difference in my Les Paul from doing it, but I to be honest, I like the way it looks. And I would say I broke first and second strings fairly regularly before I did that. I've never broken a string since doing it. So for me, that's evidence that that brake angle across the saddle has improved the longevity of the strings. I don't really care about if there's a change of tone. It was purely a practical thing and almost aesthetic.
Yeah, I feel we're getting into like super nerdy, like potentially unrewarding areas of adjustment on guitar.
Well, like you said, you mentioned right at the start, right? It's about, a lot of these things are about marginal gains. But we've gone through a list of 10 different things here, and if each of them are only, improving your instrument by 2%, that's a 20% improvement overall in the sound of your instrument, right? It's all about marginal gains, really. Especially when you look at those Tokai guitars that you've just purchased, right? Let's use those as a brilliant example. Those are good guitars, well-made guitars, really good instruments, but where they save the money is in the things that you've upgraded, right? The electronic components, like you had volume and tone pots in there, but they were small, cheaply made items, cheap wire used between them, and the pickups in there are obviously built to a price. So that's effectively the difference between a £500 guitar and a £1,000 guitar is, the materials between those two aren't really going to be any different. It's the time spent on it and the electronics and the components that you can source cheaply and the components that you can source with a higher cost that have been, gone through a more stringent manufacturing process. That's where guitar companies, that's how they build to a price. So if you can buy a £500 guitar and spend £100 improving it, you're then ending up with something that's equivalent to a £1,000 guitar. So it's not just marginal gains, really, is it?
No, exactly right, mate. Exactly. And I think that list is a decent list to start with, but by no means you need to do all of those things on every guitar to make it as good a guitar as it can be. Like for your Strat, you knew it was a couple of things that you wanted to change to make it into the guitar you wanted to. For those Tokais, it came with a bone nut already. The tuners were really decent. And it was, and the saddles and things like that were great. Yeah. So it was the electronics that they'd saved some money on. They still sounded good. Yeah. But as you said, I invested $100 into it, and it sounds like twice the guitar. It's a list of things to kind of go through and see which ones you might want to do onto a guitar to make it that bit better. So.
Fantastic.
And if all else fails, just obviously take the back plate off and hang out with Eric Johnson.
Brilliant, mate. Well, I think we've covered it all there, and I hope anyone who's listening who's interested in modifying their guitars and maybe is concerned about whether to try it or not, I hope this gives you more confidence to go away and think about things that you can do, things that you can change that might make a bigger difference than you think, things that you don't have the confidence to do. Well, give them a go. You probably find you can do them much easier than you first suspect. So happy modding.
Yeah, absolutely. Give it a go. If you get stuck, drop us a line at the Guitar Smarts podcast. We'll happily drop you a line back and give you some pointers if you're stuck on any of the things that we've covered. It's been quite top line. It's not instructions on how to specifically go about doing it. It's ideas of where to start looking for doing mods. So yeah, drop us a line and we'll happily help you out with some more detailed advice on any of those and give it a go. And if you're really nervous, take it to a guitar tech and maybe they'll let you watch them, and so you can learn for the next time to do it yourself.
Excellent. Well, before we wrap up, Matt, any plans for this week, guitar-wise, music-wise? What are you doing?
I've got my gig bag ready, Boy Scout style. I've got my guitars ready; they're good to go. I've got some customer guitars coming in, which is going to keep me busy. Mm-hmm. So I've got people that want to get their guitars ready to get back out and gigging. So I've got a few of those coming in over the next few weeks, which would be good to help some people out get their guitars up to scratch. And we're going to be doing some modding to some of those guitars. Some replacement parts are going into those, and then tightening up the set lists for hopefully gigs coming back online. Yeah. I'm desperate to get out there now. So hopefully no more cancelled gigs in July and venues saying yes, come and play. So
fingers crossed.
Yeah. How about you, mate? What are you up to this week?
Yeah, just a bit of trying to get some more playing in, a bit more practice, find a bit more time to work on the things I want to work on. I'm enjoying playing guitar at home at the moment, and yeah, same as you. Really hoping to get some more gigs in the diary and get playing again. Try and see out the summer, with a few gigs and enjoy myself. Really, that's it.
Good stuff, mate. Well, look, pleasure chatting to you today, mate, and we will do it again next week.
Yeah, looking forward to it already. Have a cracking week, buddy. I'll speak to you later on.
And you, mate. Looking forward to next week.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
All the best, fella. Ta-ra, mate.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's podcast. That's part 2 wrapped up of our guitar modification series. I hope you really enjoyed it. Leave us some comments if you like in the reviews or on our social media pages. We love to listen to our listeners and to hear what you think. And we're looking forward to next week's podcast too. So come back for more next week. Have a great week and speak to you soon.